some incredible video coming out of Hong Kong for us today, Sue.
Yes, and this is in response to every July 1st, it is the anniversary of the handover of Hong Kong to the Chinese from the British. This July 1st, which has just ended because it's now after midnight there, you see riot police coming in. Thousands of protesters swarmed into the central part of Hong Kong today. They broke into the legislature this morning, protesting China's dominion over Hong Kong. They are asking for the Hong Kong top officials to step down. They are also continuing to protest an extradition law which would have allowed Hong Kong to extradite foreigners as well as Hong Kong residents to China if they were charged with a crime. So they would be tried in China, not in Hong Kong. That triggered protests, which actually began about a week and a half ago, culminating on this July 1st anniversary. Riot police had stayed out of the situation up until now. So as you look at these live pictures from Hong Kong, that's the central part of Hong Kong, right by the legislature, and riot police have been moving in. We haven't seen them fire tear gas quite yet. The expectation is that they are going to try and keep their response as low as possible, but this is the first time that we have seen live pictures of riot police moving into that particular part of Hong Kong. And thousands of people were in the streets earlier. We continue to follow this very fluid situation in Hong Kong right now as the anniversary, the July 1st anniversary, officially passes. But as you can see, the protesters are not going back, and they are not backing down at all. Scott, back to you.
You know, Sue, we'll stay with this and stay with us if you would,
yes.
Because it looks, tense enough there that you don't know if these riot police are going to be moving forward or not.
Exactly.
So I thought we'd stay with this video for a minute and see exactly what transpires as you're following it for us, and we're watching it unfold.
It started, as I said, a couple of weeks ago, and this has been building steadily for the last couple of weeks. As you see those riot police start to advance a little bit more, they have their shields up. As I said, so far we have not seen tear gas being fired or anything along those lines, but they are forming a very strong front there against the protesters. The estimation earlier this morning was several thousand protesters outside of the government buildings. They did break in. They're demanding, as I said, the resignation of the top Hong Kong officials. It started with this extradition bill, but now it has escalated. They spray painted pro-democracy slogans on the walls of government buildings this morning. That continued well into the evening. And the protesters have made it clear, they've asked for those officials to step down, and they've made it clear that in their estimation, they're in this for the long haul. And they have followed through with that. We have seen daily protests for at least a week or so on these several different fronts. It started, though, Scott, with the extradition bill.
You saw them, the protesters, storm some of these government buildings earlier. Yep. So you could see at one point I saw, looked like a metal door that was pushed open by the protesters there.
Yeah, they broke it down. And they basically, there were thick glass windows as well. The door that you saw was leading actually into the government building. They broke that down. They broke down some very thick glass as well. That got them into the chamber where they basically tried to haul out all of the officials that were trying to hold court in there. They did not succeed in doing that, I should add, because police did come in and pull them out, but they did spray paint various pro-democracy slogans on the outside of the building and on the inside of the building before they were removed. And since then, more and more protesters have gathered. And there you see, I believe that is tear gas that is now being fired as you see the riot police moving in against the protesters who are behind a barricaded wall, but they've been jumping over those barricades at various times during this evening. So let's listen in and watch this for a moment. And as you can see, there's a very heavy police presence behind the protesters as well. If you look at the bottom part of your screen, that's where you will see some of the protesters. A lot of them have umbrellas. They had that earlier this morning. And I'm trying to take a look at what that is. I believe that is more police and protesters moving in. And it sounds like we heard a shot fired there. We'll wait and see.
Looks like in some sense, Sue, what the riot police are doing in certain instances is trying to spread the barricade forward as they move forward as a group. The barricade then moves forward towards the protesters as well. You can see, in fact, some throwing some right there towards the riot police, which have moved into the scene. You know, it's also interesting to note that the markets have been so preoccupied with the events in Osaka and just the general trade environment that's been, sucking the oxygen out of the room in the conversation, that the markets haven't paid all that much attention to much of what's going on in Hong Kong.
They've largely ignored it. You're right, Scott. Now, it's also interesting, I saw on some of those protesters, as perhaps you did as well, they do have masks on, so they gas masks in particular. So obviously they were anticipating some sort of response from the police that would have included tear gas. But it is interesting to me that given the scope of this protest and the length of time that it has been going on a much smaller scale, obviously, last week, but as we continue to see tear gas being fired into the crowds, that the market has not responded to it. It'll be interesting to see if it does after this, because this is, I would say, probably the most intense protest that we have seen in the past 2 weeks between these two separate groups.